we all know about recycling, maybe, how you use things in new ways, okay? Well, in the old days, when you got these big old holes in your blue jeans, like he's got, and your mama said, no more wearing those blue jeans, she didn't just throw those blue jeans out. She took the blue jeans and she cut out squares and shapes out of the good part of the blue jeans. She did that with all the leftovers for the clothes, and then when she got a nice big pile, she'd say, it's time to make a patchwork quilt. And she'd sew those patches together and she'd make something new out of those old things. Now, here are the motions. I want you to put on a pair of glasses for your grandma, because you know our eyes get old. On my grandma's, and probably the first place you need a patch is right here, because you're sitting on it all the time. So for patch, I want you to kind of hit your bottom. Patchwork, and for quilt, I want you to pretend you've got a needle and you're sewing, okay? On the grandma's patchwork quilt, let me see it. Squares of corduroy and silk, red and green and blue, and yellow too, on the grandma's patchwork quilt. Now let's go over to Europe. Europe is over here across the Atlantic Ocean, and this is a story that comes from many countries. It's a very well-known story called Stone Soup. These are just two of the books that have had that story. They might be ones you have in the library. There's another one written by Heather Forrest, but where I learned this version of the story from is from a recording of hers called Sing Me a Story. Well, if these people really are so poor that they have no food to share with us, maybe we should fix them our magic soup. So the two travelers went to the center of town and they called out, if anyone in this town has a big black pot, we will make the most incredible soup you ever tasted. Out of curiosity, an old woman brought a huge black pot and set it down in the middle of the square. Gather round, everybody, they said, and everyone gathered round as the two travelers put some water in that pot and built a fire underneath, and then everyone watched as one of the travelers reached down and picked up a stone out of the road and threw it into the pot. This, he said, is no ordinary stone. And this is no ordinary soup. We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Hey, can you sing that? We're making stone soup, we're making stone soup, we're making stone soup today. Hey, and it will be nutritious, delicious, incredible, edible. But it would taste a little better if we had a few more ingredients to put in it. Well, said a woman, I've got some green beans. Okay, go and bring it, said the travelers. Anybody here got anything to put in the pot? Anybody got an idea? What could you give to put in the pot? Potatoes! Yes, they said potatoes. Bring some potatoes. How about you? Yeah, and the yellow dress. What would you put in the pot? Think of it before you raise your hand, A banana, they said. A little unusual, but I bet it'll taste good, they said. They said, bring what you got and put it in the pot. Bring what you got and put it in the pot. Sing that. Bring what you got and put it in the pot. Bring what you got and put it in the pot. Make stone soup, make stone soup, make stone soup today. Hey, stone soup, make stone soup, make stone soup today. Hey, and it will be delicious. America. The song is called Mi Casa es Su Casa. What does that mean? Who can tell me what that means? What does that mean? My house is your house. That's right, it's a way of welcoming somebody. It's like saying, make yourself at home. Feel like you're at home. My house is your house. In this song, the woman who wrote it, Michele Valeri, is kind of telling about her adventures when she traveled throughout Latin America. And she found that every place she went, the people were so nice to her. And most of them were poor people. They might have only one chair in their house, but they would say, sit down in that chair. They might have one Coca-Cola in the refrigerator. They'd give her that. If she stayed the night, they'd give her the one mattress. They were so nice to her, she wanted to write a song about her. But because she was writing for kids, she thought it'd be fun to make it animals instead of people who were inviting her in. The first animal who invites her in is an anaconda. She's floating down the Amazon River. Now, really, you wouldn't want an anaconda to invite you home. Not a real anaconda. But this is a pretend song, okay? And then she's hiking in the Andes Mountains with a Quechua guide. That's a Quechua Indian. They lived there a long time before the Spanish ever came over with a Quechua guide. And there was an Inca ruin. That's the old city of Machu Picchu, okay, on the mountainside. And there was a llama, or a llama, right there. Big, fuzzy, hiking in the Andes with a Quechua guide. There was an Inca ruin on the mountainside. And standing in the shadow of a temple wall, there was a friendly llama. She was 8 feet tall. And she said, Mi casa es su casa. Let me hear ya. Whenever you are near, can't hear ya. Mi casa es su casa. Sit down and rest, my dear. Through the mountain, what they would do is they would have a drill, and John Henry would hit that drill, and then the shaker would twist it so it dug into the rock. He'd hit it again, they'd twist it again, hit it, twist it, till they had a big enough place where they could put a stick of dynamite, and then they would blow up a little more of the rock and start all over again. The owner of the company brought a steam drill around. These were real machines that they invented to do the work. And they said it could do the work of 10 men. Well, if it could do the work of 10 men, then 9 of those men would be out of a job. So the legend says that John Henry raced that steam drill to see who could go further through the mountain in the same amount of time. Well, the captain said to John Henry, you know, bring me a steam drill around. I'm gonna bring that steam drill out on the job. Walk that old steam on down, Lord, walk that old steam on down. Well, John Henry said to the captain, he said, a man ain't nothing but a man. But before I let your old steam drill beat me down, you know I'll die with a hammer in my hand, Lord, Lord, I'll die with a hammer in my hand. Holy book is not the Bible, it's the Quran. And there are 5 pillars. To believe in no God but Allah, and Allah just means God in Arabic. To believe in God, and that Muhammad is his prophet. To pray 5 times a day. To fast during the month of Ramadan. To give a share of your personal wealth to the poor. That's one of the 5 pillars. And to perform a pilgrimage, which a lot of people don't get to do, but that's a goal, to Mecca at least once in a lifetime. And many Muslim women wear a hijab over their head. Okay? Now most mosques the equivalent of a church, don't look like that. That's a big and beautiful one in the capital of Turkey, Istanbul. And it just happens that the first story I'm going to tell you comes from that country of Turkey. It's one of many, many stories told about a man who really lived, whose name was Nasrudin. Hoja wasn't really his last name. Hoja means teacher. He was considered a teacher, but he taught in a very odd way. Many of the stories that people have been telling ever since show him sometimes acting very foolish, and other times he acts very wise. And sometimes there's kind of a mix of the two. The story I want to tell you, I learned from another book, but you can find a version of it in the picture book called The Hungry Coat. Okay? It goes like this. One time, the Hoja was invited to a banquet at the home of the Mukhtar, a very important man in his village. Now, the Hoja was considered a wise man, Nasrudin, in his village. And he loved to eat. So being invited to a banquet was perfect. All day long as he was working in the garden, he was thinking, all that delicious food. As I'm eating that food, people will be asking my opinion about all kinds of interesting things. It will be great. All day long he was thinking about that as he was working in the garden, and he was thinking so hard that he didn't pay attention to the time. And he discovered when he had finished and he went home that if he wanted to bathe and he wanted to dress up in his fine clothes, he was going to be late for the banquet. He didn't want to do that. So he went on to the banquet in his work clothes, with dirt on his clothes and dirt on his hands, dirt on his face. And when he walked into the banquet, even though he was sure that the Mukhtar recognized him, the Mukhtar didn't pay him any attention. In fact, nobody did. And they seated him at the end of a long table in the back of the hall. And when the food finally came down to his end of the table, there was nothing left. So the Hoja, with his stomach empty and his feelings hurt, slipped out of the banquet and he went back home. When he got home, he bathed himself completely, and then he put on his finest clothes. He put on an elegant shirt and baggy pants and a great big turban, and on top of it all, he put on his new fur coat. Well, this time, when he got to the banquet, the Mukhtar rose to meet him. And the servant took him and seated him right there beside the Mukhtar in the place of honor. The servants brought him tray after tray of delicious food, and he would take the foods and people were asking him questions, but as he took the food, he didn't eat it. He started stuffing it into the pockets of his coat. And when he ran out of room in the pockets, he started rubbing it into his shirt. He was rubbing it all over his shirt. The kids thought it was funny, you know. Here he was, the wise man in town, and he was rubbing food in his shirt. But the Mukhtar was kind of embarrassed, and he watched him for a while, and finally he said, Hoja, he said, what are you doing? Have you lost your mind? No, said the Hoja, I haven't lost my mind. I'm just trying to teach you a little lesson. You see, when I came here earlier dressed in my work clothes, you barely acknowledged me, and you seated me in a corner way back in the corner of the hall, where there was no food left for me, and really no one to talk to. When I came back dressed in these elegant clothes, you treated me as the guest of honor. Well, I haven't changed. I'm the same person who came here before. It's only my clothes that have changed. So, it must be my clothes that you're honoring. Out of respect, I'm feeding them first. Eat my clothes, he said. You are the guest of honor. And with that, he stood up and he left the hall. That it's not important what a person looks like on the outside. It's the person inside. Well, one day, a letter arrived from Abby from the United States at a little one-room schoolhouse in the capital of Afghanistan. And they had to decide who would answer that letter. Well, they picked Saeed because he was the best student in her class. But then there was a problem. You see, Saeed was a boy, and according to their custom, it was not polite for a boy to be corresponding with a girl. And so they got Saeed's sister to actually sign the letters and write down her name. Well, as they corresponded, they told all kinds of interesting things about each other and learned a lot, but they discovered that there were an awful lot of prejudices in both countries, and a lot of people who didn't even want them to correspond because one country hated the other and the other country hated them. And so they learned a lot, and the people who were around them learned a lot. In a way, this book is kind of an extension of the story that I just told you about Nasrudin Hoja. Great book.
If we could consider each other a neighbor, a sister, or brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.
If each little kid could have fresh milk each day, if all working folks had enough time to play, if each homeless town had a good place to stay, it could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.
If we could consider each other a neighbor, a sister, or brother, it could be a wonderful, wonderful world. It could be a wonderful world. Oh yes, it could be a wonderful world.